Hey everyone, welcome to the Top Human Podcast. I'm very excited today. We have Kyle on the show, a good friend of mine. He just went through the Mindworx program, and I wanted to bring him on so we could discuss a little bit of his experience and dive into what is actually going on behind the scenes with Mindworx and hear some of Kyle's story as well. So Kyle is a lead software developer at a big fintech company. He's been there for a while. He's a good friend of mine from a nationwide men's community of high performing men. And we're always trying to optimize ourselves to get better and better and better. And Kyle and I met in that community, and he was asking me questions about just improving and wanted to bring him into the program, which he did. And we're going to hear a little bit about his story. So welcome to the podcast, Kyle.
Yeah, awesome, man. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man, of course. Let's just start with telling us a little bit about you and kind of where you were before like you and I started connecting and talking about this stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, like a lot of young professionals, I was kind of just working, trying my best to be high performing at work and all of these different things, and just going through life. You know what I mean? Trying to balance that with having a little bit of a healthy social life and showing up for my friends and family. So that's kind of where I was. And when you're so focused on work and performing and getting that next bonus and all these other things, sometimes you can kind of lose sight of some of the direction that you want to go in, like personally. So that's kind of where I was before talking to you about some of this stuff and the interest in Mindworx.
Mm-hmm. And is that something that you were doing a lot, is like really focused on your career and like promotions and bonuses and stuff like that? I know you're doing that in the kitchen. I know you like to cook a lot.
Yeah.
And and your style, dude, like, you're
I
got better
it.
style than most guys I know. So professionally, was that also something that was like an ambition of yours?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny because I wouldn't consider myself like traditionally ambitious person, like a work oriented style person. But it kind of just, that was just kind of the story that was kind of given to me. So it was kind of just like what I thought was the right thing to do is like, work hard, always try for the next promotion, value your title and things of that nature. So it was kind of just continuing to push on that sort of path that had me in that area where I was just, focusing a lot on work.
Yeah, I gotcha. One thing I've noticed, just in general with people and especially a lot of high achievers, we push a lot in our careers or businesses or whatever, and a lot of times our health will suffer, and that health can be like our physical health or also like our internal world, like our mental health too. And it's not just from pushing in business, but also because of how we were raised and stuff like that. So how would you kind of describe where you were at before? And I think, what were you like struggling with most, mentally, emotionally, or physically? And one thing that I think is interesting is the difference between what your external life looks like and what our internal world is. Because on Instagram, on social media, right? We make everything look perfect, right?
It's highlight reel.
Exactly. But there can often be a disconnect. And like, that was my case. I was traveling the world. Life looked great, but I was breaking down on the inside, really.
Yeah.
So where were you at kind of before you decided to jump into the program?
Yeah. Like I said, I think that sort of like ambitious work sort of path was something that was kind of given to me. And I think it's, partially like a family, partially like a family thing. Like, the one side of my family is very much ambitious and they're all professionals and all advanced degree holders. And so I think growing up, there was somewhat of that sort of expectation to always like push in that area. And then I think in combination with some of the stuff that also happened like in my family life, like with my parents, also kind of pushed me to value stability in that sort of success and like what that meant.
Like financial stability?
Yeah, like financial stability, having a certain career, having a certain degree, having a certain skill set. Like there, there was this, I guess, safety or this like fallback in saving money or getting promoted and all that other stuff. And it really ended up, like you said, it really ended up having me kind of neglect some of the other areas of my life where, like, internally, yeah, I was getting a promotion, but I felt like stress, or I had like ambient anxiety, or I wasn't investing a lot in my social life and connecting with people that matter to me and stuff like that. So I think those were like kind of the biggest influences on how I ended up there. And once I started noticing that I was constantly having, like I said, that ambient anxiety and stress was just boiling over. I didn't necessarily feel like all of the things that I was achieving was fulfilling me, like on a deeper level. That's when I kind of realized that something's kind of got to give or change, or I was more open to trying to figure out how to redirect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Like we get to a certain place and we don't necessarily realize we get into that state.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, I've got to do something about this.
Yeah.
And we connected a lot too, talking about like our families and like family dysfunction and being the nice guy
Mm-hmm.
also.
Yeah.
And I think the pattern in that is as we grow up, we end up kind of choosing to become someone that is not really authentic to ourselves. And that kind of creates some of that ambient anxiety and the cognitive dissonance that we experience because we're pushing for one thing and trying to be a certain person, but it's not really who we actually are,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, right? Can you speak to like how you were feeling in that regard?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you kind of start becoming this like Frankenstein of other people's wants and needs and like ideals for you. And I think to some degree that's appropriate when you're, I don't know, 10 or 12, right? Like they're your parents, you respect them. You kind of you want to be like them in some respect. So it's like, that makes sense. But I think as you transition into an adult, you really want to have this like congruence where your life is reflecting like your internal state, like what you want, what your values are, how you self-identify. And I think that was kind of the hard part where it was like I had all of these things like, you know, my dad's a professional and this, and I was like trying to identify with something that might have been more right for them than it was for me. And I never had that period of transition where I kind of took a step back and said, hey, like, is this the life that I actually want? Or even if I want some of the things that were kind of laid out in front of me, are they fitting into like my internal like self-reflection, like how I think about myself, where I want to go, what direction I want to take my life in, how I want to feel is probably one of the biggest ones. It's like such a strange feeling to work hard for something, get the promotion, and feel nothing. I don't know if you've experienced that before, but it's like, you stress really, really hard about, doing this project or leading this project at work. It all goes better than planned. And then you kind of get to the end of it and you're like, you just put the next thing on your plate. And it's like, you don't get a second to, like feel anything about it, like feel proud of yourself or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah, for a long time I was, moving in life to hear I'm proud of you from other people. And I've shifted that towards like asking myself, like, when's the last time you were proud of you? So it's just a different,
Yeah.
different type of
No,
mindset.
I love that. And that reminds me too, I mean, there's a couple of things I could say about that. A lot of people achieve things and they don't feel what they thought they would.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's common. And that reminds me of something you were saying, like during the time that we were working together, right? Where there was like maybe a handful of decisions that you've made in your life that were what you wanted to make,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
most of them were like what other people wanted. And I resonated with that. Maybe, I don't know how much, to what extreme, but Yeah, like you said, being that Frankenstein of like what other people want it's real.
Yeah, yeah. And you kind of like, Frankenstein's kind of a good analogy for this because you kind of become this drone or zombie, right? Because you're kind of just like moving through life and all of these different things. All of these external forces are kind of pulling you in a direction, and you're kind of just like, nothing is internally orienting you towards what would, feel congruent for you, what would have you feel, fulfilled. So it's really interesting. It's almost unbelievable that like it's sustain like living like that is sustainable at all.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how resilient the human body is and mind. Like
Yeah,
we can get into insane states of dysregulation, of just inauthenticity or whatever, and we just keep going. And it's pretty wild to me that we can like live that kind of zombie life,
yeah,
right? In many different aspects, many different contexts, and just keep going. Like the human body, this is why we're the top of the food chain, right? This is
yeah,
why we are where we are. We are so resilient, it's insane.
yeah, yeah,
And it gets to a point where it eats away at us, because we've pushed for so long, especially the entrepreneurs, the high achievers that we deal with so much. It's going to bite us sooner or later.
yeah. Yeah, you start feeling it. Start losing focus. Start having weird dreams, lack of sleep, tension around the body, all sorts of things. But for me, like focus, tiredness, ambient anxiety were the ones that were just they kind of just snowball and build up, and they get to the point where you can't ignore it, right?
Yeah, man. So what was a moment for you? Because we were talking in like in Discord, right? Kind of
Yeah,
before we were talking about family stuff, and then we were talking in Mykonos when we were out there, which was an amazing trip.
yeah,
Um, what was like the thing or the couple of things that made you say like, yeah, like I want to go through the Mindworx program? Because we talked a little bit about it, maybe.
yeah.
What was the thing that made you go like, yeah, I think this would be a good thing for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a couple things. I think one, just like our friendship and talking to you about some of the things that, like you said earlier, that we shared, with some of the family of origin stuff and so kind of similar feelings, some of the nice guy stuff, the people pleasing and things of that nature. So I really kind of had a level of like trust, and I thought there was like mutual understanding there, which made me feel really comfortable. Then the other thing I think was that like where I was at in life when we had that conversation was, yeah, I was feeling that sort of autopilot thing, right? That sort of zombie thing.
Yeah.
And maybe I wouldn't go as far to say stuck, but I definitely felt like I was in a spot where I needed some more self direction, and I didn't know how to get there. Because even though I could think, hey, I need to start making more decisions for myself, there were like feelings and just different dynamics that were kind of holding me back from kind of pushing more in that direction. And I thought the program could help specifically with that. So it felt like the right time, and right time, right place. Like I said, there was that mutual understanding. So it just felt like a fit.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. I think it's interesting that, similar experiences can, I don't want to say be solved, but, as you go through similar things in life, like you can use similar tools to kind of undo those things.
Yeah.
And as my time as a software developer, and you're a software engineer too, right?
Yeah.
As software developers, like we get paid well for fixing problems at the root level, and of course for building stuff, right? But most of the time we're debugging, right, and
Hmm.
fixing bugs. And so if we can kind of solve things at more of a root level, then it's going to have a much more global impact
Yeah.
on our life, on our experience and everything. And so that is how I approached solving my problems, right? Was at that, dig in at the root level type of thing. And so it was really cool to see your experience as well going through, because we've had similar life experiences going through the same tools that I've used and then have an even better and faster shifts in your life than what I experienced as I was trying to figure this out myself. So what was one of like the first things that clicked for you once you started Mindworx? And because I'm sure like your if you had to describe what it was or what the Mindworx process is from your perception at the beginning of the program versus at the end of the program, right? They're going to be different. So at the beginning of the program, right? What was one of the first things that kind of clicked and you were like, oh, like there's something going on here, or this is different, or just something that stood out to you when you felt something shift?
Yeah. I think in the beginning, there were a few times where things clicked, but I think specifically in the beginning, I think that one of the exercises, I think it was forced relaxation. It really, so like I said, I had this awareness that I had ambient anxiety, but I didn't necessarily have as much of an awareness of how I was carrying it physically. And the forced relaxation exercise was really helpful for me because I almost immediately started noticing how much tension I hold, like in my face, like in my brow, in my jaw, and just kind of in day-to-day life, driving, walking to the train, just kind of sitting, working at my desk. I kind of realized I just hold a lot of tension in my face. And that first exercise, it's interesting because you would never think to do more of what is bothering you. So like you would never think to like, I'm gonna like tense up. Yeah, like I'm gonna tense up like as much as I can for a period of time and then just try to exhale. But when I was doing that, I really noticed exactly like specific areas where I was like trying to tense more, and I was like, oh, was I already like furrowing my brow? Was I already like sitting kind of hunched with my shoulders up? Was I already, holding all of this tension? And that one really helped, and it was kind of a moment that clicked because I'm more of and I think this is something that's the case for a lot of like software developers. Like we're really in our heads, like we're very like thinkers, and less like in our body, like less present in our body. And for me, it kind of immediately set the tone of Mindworx of being like, oh, we're gonna be in our body a little bit here, and we're gonna be working with it to try to work through some of this stuff. So I think that was one of the initial things that had clicked for me.
Yeah, I love that, dude. It's literally like the first exercise of the program.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what that's designed for, is to get you to realize like there's another level, there's something else going on besides just the mind, right? It's not just mental. And in society, I mean, we get rewarded for being smart and being intelligent and achieving occupations such as software developer, doctor, lawyer, stuff like that, right? There's a lot of studying, a lot of book knowledge, a lot of, education that goes into achieve that level of degree. And it's all about being intelligent and smart and in your head.
Yeah.
So
it almost like reinforces that you can kind of think your way out of any problem. It kind of like puts you in that. It kind of like puts you, it kind of like puts you in that place, in that pattern, I guess.
Yeah. And you can't think your way out of a dysregulated nervous system. You can't think your way out of tension in your body, right? You can't think your way out of all the stuff that's like stuck and bound up inside. So yeah, I love how you said that. Yeah. And so how did things shift for you then as you start? Because that was week 1, I think, right? That was like the very beginning.
Yeah.
So
around there. Yeah, like that's probably
maybe
like
week 2.
Week 2 or 2, like 2 or 3, but yeah.
Maybe week
it was
2
very
or something.
Early on.
Yeah. So how did things shift for you as you went through like the next weeks and learned the other exercises and as you practiced them?
Yeah. I think the interesting thing is kind of after that, even though I had such a like a click with, okay, we're gonna be working with some stuff in the body. The next couple of exercises kind of showed how much I'm used to just being in my head, because it was like my brain was just trying to pull me back into, no, you can think your way out of this. Like No, you can like ruminate more on these things. And so that was a little bit of a struggle with like, the walk the mind exercise. But I found, writing it out and then kind of like, trying to organize my thoughts a little bit more and then kind of meditate, take deep breaths and get back into it really, really helped. So there was some like resistance, I guess, from the mind side of things. But then once we got into the ask the body exercise, again, like I struggled with it a little bit in the beginning, because I'm just so used to going think my way out of it first.
Yeah.
But once I really kind of like gave it a chance, I tried some, variations with, environmental variations and things of that nature. What I realized was I guess I didn't realize, I don't know. When you feel an emotion, and I guess it could be just for the folks that are just used to thinking.
Hmm.
First path is just like, okay, why am I feeling this? And then it's like, then the rumination starts, the spiraling starts, and it's just like you get so deep into your mind, you don't stop to think like, where am I feeling this? Or like you don't stop to think like,
Hmm.
hey, am I holding this in my body? Am I tensing up? Am I doing all this other stuff? Do I need to like go for a walk? Do I need to like get outside, get a breath of fresh air? And I think the longer I went in the program, the more I guess the spectrum of think your way out of this problem, and this is gonna sound weird, but kind of like do or move your way out of this problem,
Yeah.
the spectrum started getting closer to like 50-50. Like I started realizing like, oh, I can deal with some of this stuff like in the body. I don't have to be in my head about it the entire time. Or I can pause my rumination and then try to attempt to do something like go for a walk or stand up or go do a workout. And then while I'm like doing that physical thing, try to like focus on just the emotion and not like all of the different paths and spider webs of my normal think. Oh, that's not going to work. Spiral. Oh, that feel anxious. Think about another solution. Spiral. Feel anxious. So, yeah, it definitely kind of naturally started changing my approach to just my immediate response to things, but also like what I viewed as an appropriate path forward. That it wasn't just, oh, let me just think about this more. Let me
Yeah.
just worry about this more. Let me just ruminate about this more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in general, right, in physics, like we know this, like energy takes the path of least resistance,
Yeah.
right? And so when, again, we have all these neural pathways, right, for thinking, and we're intelligent and we're smart, and we are, that's where the energy kind of goes first. And over the decades of our lives and as we grow up, because we're rewarded in those ways, we start to lose that connection with our bodies. So, of course, in the first initial exercises, or the first time you did the new exercises, like it is a challenge, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't, then you'd already be there, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there is the initial like learning phase, but it's no longer like an educational, like heady intellectual learning,
Yeah.
right? It's more like a body learning.
Yeah.
And so you went through that really well, and like, yeah, you pushed through the initial phases, um, or the initial like resistance was the word you use, and I love it, right? And that's exactly what it is, right? Because I mean, electrical engineering, we have resistors
Mhm.
to slow down where energy goes, like literally where
Yeah.
electricity goes. So it's literally resistance that you have to work through,
Mhm.
right? And so it's amazing that you did that and that you noticed it and that you chose to keep going. A lot of people will meet this resistance and they'll not be aware of it, they'll not be conscious of it, and they could choose to just not drop into those deeper levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 It's like, initially it just felt so unnatural. Like it's just against all of your like my normal patterns, my like old patterns or whatever. It's just like, you
Yeah.
know, you want to, like I said, you want to immediately start thinking about a solution, right? And I think generally when you're so used to doing that, you can sort of start feeling skeptical with more intuitive things. And that's kind of that like wall that you kind of have to start breaking through. Or at least I had to start breaking through where it was like, oh, it's like this feels intuitive. It feels like starting to feel more right. I know I had shared that with you during one of our calls, but I was still like, my mind was still like, oh, can you trust that? Like, can you trust, even though it's starting to, it feels more aligned, more congruent with you, more aligned, more congruent with these other paths that were like given to you by other people. But you're so used to that it's like, there's this lack of like trust or something there. So yeah, just like another kind of barrier to kind of push through. But the program really, it really helped with that. I think like the pacing, as well as just like the progression of the different exercises was more of like okay, we're going to go from thinking in more into the body, deeper into the body, and then kind of go into this space of like observing the self in the body in like that intuitive way. And I think that was kind of where the bigger breakthrough started happening to me, because it was felt more similar to, I guess, like thinking, but like I said, it felt more intuitive and natural once we got there. But a lot of resistance up until that point.
Yeah. No, I love that you shared that. So from what you experienced in the Mindworx program, like you were just saying, right, and that whole the way the exercises are, how the exercises flow, and just the process of it all. How would you say that this is different from something like traditional talk therapy or even meditation, right? Other mindfulness,
Mm.
or like professional coaching or mindset coaching, if you've done any of that before.
Yeah, yeah. So I have experience with some of those things. I mean, primarily talk therapy. Even though during my talk therapy we did a little bit of like EMDR, which is like
Mm-hmm.
meditative in a way. And I found that to be really effective for me. But I think one of the main differences between like talk therapy and this program was that like talk therapy was very good at helping me identify some of the things that I was primarily just having anxiety about. And that was great. Like talking about them, trying to understand like where some of these things might come from, and my past, family of origin, previous experiences, and kind of like through language, putting words to those feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
that's very helpful. I think in and of itself, it's really helpful. And then with respect to the EMDR, I think that was where I started having more of that, like kind of just like processing a lot of you know previous traumas, experiences, and things of that nature. So like the Mindworks program felt a little bit more similar to that sort of work, but like I was saying before, a lot of the exercises, particularly the ones that have to do with feeling the energy, the energy that you have in your body, and you're coaching yourself to have a little bit different from what your natural response would be. That sort of thing started. It feels weird. It feels, I don't even know how to put words to it, because it feels like once you are in the exercise and it just starts clicking, it feels like you're kind of like you're on this train that's moving you towards progress. And you're kind of just like, okay, I feel like the train moving. Like I feel it moving. It's uncomfortable, but I'm going in the direction that I want to be going in. And, that was kind of a new experience. And then I think, after doing some of those more in the body exercises, the reflection afterwards felt different. And it's kind of hard, like I said, it's kind of hard to put words to, but you just feel different. You just feel, yeah, your response is just, it's just like it's a little bit different. And I know we had discussed in one of our sessions about feeling the same emotion that you would be thinking, but the response is different, right? So it's like you still feel the frustration. It still feels like frustration, and you recognize the energy. But instead of kind of like ruminating about the thing that's the cause of the frustration, you're kind of observing it in a way and
Mm-hmm.
recognizing it, acknowledging it, and just like seeing what you could do with it. I don't know. It's like, kind of, you're kind of just like harnessing it in a way. And it's just like I said, it's a different approach, right? It's not like necessarily putting language to it. It's not, thinking about how to get out of it. It's kind of like feeling it, being present in it, understanding it on a deeper, like physical level, and pushing past those like barriers of resistance to see if you can make progress. And that was just something that I just hadn't felt in my experience with talk therapy, and particularly not at the pace that this program. Yeah. Also the other thing I'll say is, like, in therapy, it felt like you'd have a session and you'd get like a homework assignment. With this, it felt like
Okay.
the sessions and the exercises were kind of like all work.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's just a little bit different. It felt a lot more kind of action oriented.
Yeah.
Definitely a different experience.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And something you said, I think is really interesting. You said, in therapy, you're putting language to your feelings.
Mm.
And it kind of clicked. I was like, in Mindworx, what we're doing is we're putting feelings to the language.
Wow.
It's literally
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
opposite, right?
Yeah.
We're doing the opposite of what you do in traditional talk therapy, which I've done years of as well. And so, everyone or whoever's watching this, or listening to it might not know that eventually we get to the point in the program where we are doing kind of like you said, kind of self-coaching, like the energy, we're working with the energy in our body.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think was really interesting in your journey through the program is how, and you just touched on it too, is how your default responses were changing, right? The way you were reacting to things just automatically were changing. And I remember it was in our calls and stuff, you were like, this is weird. Like, this
Yeah.
is not me. This is unusual.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as we get into kind of talking about like the transformation you experienced, how would you, and it is hard to put into words, right?
Hmm.
Like you were saying,
Yeah.
I totally agree. How would you kind of describe that in your own words from, learning to tap into and work with the energy in your body, and how doing so kind of made your defaults and your reactions change?
Yeah. Yeah. I think two things, right? You know, for somebody who's so used to kind of thinking myself out of a box, like thinking myself out of a problem, that was just the default response to any trigger, any memory of some traumatic thing, any relationship that, or interaction that I was currently experiencing that would kind of like bring me back to those places. By
Mm-hmm.
default, I'd be like, oh, this is happening again. Think about it. Think about what went wrong previously. All these different things. And, you know, after going through some of these exercises, not only did the exercises themselves become like a tool that I could use in some of those moments, but just even feeling comfortable with taking a step back in some of those moments felt more natural. So that was like the bigger breakthrough for me, where it was like, you don't have to like immediately start ruminating on this. You could take a step back, feel the energy, ask your body like, what's going on? What are you feeling? Start to get curious about that, and not immediately have to feel like you have to, respond and try to think your way out of this. That in and of itself was a big breakthrough for me. And that was probably what you're referring to when I was like, this is weird. This is not me. Because it's crazy how you can get stuck in such a pattern that you don't even think that you have the option of any other, any other way to respond. Like, you feel like you're not,
Yeah.
it sounds so silly to say, but it's like, you feel like you're not allowed to respond in any other way. So it was kind of like I guess the program kind of slowed me down in a way. Like, when I was feeling some of these things, like it was kind of like, okay, let's take a step back, slow motion, observe yourself, observe your thoughts, observe your body, and just try to feel the energy here. Like you said, putting feelings to the language. And, once I kind of got to that point, one was extremely surprised at the sheer amount of energy that could come when I actually took a step back to observe it instead of just like letting my mind run on these things. I was like, whoa, like there's a lot here. There's a lot, like I said, there, it's not just, it's tension, it's this, it's all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got to some of the, the let it go exercise and things of that nature, just started feeling like that is a appropriate response to some of these external things. I don't have to ruminate. I could observe the energy, and that's an appropriate response. I could observe the energy and try to reroute it into something that does feel congruent with me, into a path that's like, self-directed, or I could sit on it for a while. I could go for a walk and see how I feel afterwards, see where it is afterwards. So yeah, it was really unnatural at first, but
Mm-hmm.
now it feels like another option. And then I can always go back to the exercises to use them as like tools if I'm struggling with how I'm responding to things. Yeah, really, really unnatural at first, and now it feels kind of like I was saying before. It feels right. And
Yeah.
that's a strange way to describe it. Like I said, it's hard to put words to these things, but
Yeah.
it feels better.
Nice, dude. I love it. Clearly, you've noticed a lot of changes within your own life, and just hearing your stories, I can see that also. What have other people noticed? Like,
Ooh,
have you heard anything from like family or friends on like, dude, you're different? Like
wow.
anything like that?
It's a good question. I mean, maybe not explicitly. Uh, Let me try to think. Maybe not explicitly, but I certainly have noticed that I'm showing up differently in environments or in situations or in personal interactions in which I would have normally been more reactive or
Mm-hmm.
triggered.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And like I said, I haven't been explicitly told that, but I had a big family event recently, and I prior to Mindworx, or even a couple of years ago, I would have held a lot of anxiety prior to that event, and I still definitely had a little bit of an anxiety, but again, like the path that I took to kind of deal with it was a lot different. Like I felt it, it was there, I observed it. Like I kind of, took some deep breaths. And I kind of just like let it go and said, hey, like, I'm just gonna try to have a good time, and I think I would say some of the interactions with folks I thought probably were different because of how I showed up, and I know I showed up different because of some of the work that we did, and yeah, so I haven't heard any explicit, you know, anything explicit just yet, but definitely starting to feel that way, and
Nice.
yeah, I would say that I retrospectively looking back, I would say, yeah, there are some interactions that I've had that I've noticed that likely would have been different. Certainly that I would have felt different.
Yeah. Yeah. What about anything specific in like in your work or in relationships or dating, like anything specifically that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
it was different like during or after?
yeah, yeah. It's funny, it's funny how we started the conversation talking about like the work and ambitions and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I will say how I show up at work it does change. It has changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the best way that I would describe it would be moments that normally would have made me feel like justified in continuing to push in terms of just accomplishing next promotion, next title change, next big responsibility, next project to lead at work. A lot of those things would be like, okay, well, it's not going too well, and that's why I need to continue doing this so that I'm safer and all this other stuff. And what I've noticed in myself is that I have this, I guess, more of a bird's eye view now, where I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I'm going in the direction that I would like for my career to go. This job is a part of that, but it doesn't have to be the defining part of it. And I also don't have to allow like my fears or what I've been previously chasing after in terms of like validation from a boss or family or whatever. it doesn't have to define how I respond to a moment at work right now. And that was a huge shift for me. I found myself, honestly, when we were going through the program, I found myself doing the exercises more organically or choosing to do them in the
Yeah.
office than I did at home. Like at home, I had
All
like
right.
schedule time for the exercises, but I found
Yeah.
like in the office, I'd be like, I'm just gonna go in a phone booth and just do a forced relaxation for 5 minutes,
Oh, nice.
and really helps kind of ground me in some of those moments. And yeah, it's like in the past, I definitely would have started ruminating. Oh, this is why I need to do more, and this is why I need to be safe, and this is why I can't be the guy that's on the layoff list, and this is why I can't. And now it's kind of like, hey, like I've done all this stuff. My career is in a good spot. Is worrying about these things and having them impede progress and my life being self-directed in other areas worth it? And I think Mindworks helped me kind of get closer to the answer of that question being probably not. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
shown up big time in the workplace for me. I think professionally, and I think even in a broader sense, holistically, may have shifted the how big of a spot work specifically holds in the whole direction of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you said, this job that I have, this role, this, position that I'm in, it's a piece of the puzzle of my career. It's not the
Yeah,
whole thing.
yeah,
Right. And we get so like small minded, like narrow minded in a way
hmm
because of the fight or flight state that we live in, because we're living on the sympathetic half of our nervous systems, right? Because we're so stressed and in tension all the time that we're focused on survival
yeah,
and we get stuck in that state. And so as you start to drop into more relaxed and parasympathetic and you pull your body out of that state, you're not in survival anymore and your mind shifts more to thriving.
yeah,
And you can see from a bigger picture, right? We can now observe from farther away that bird's eye view, like you were talking about,
yeah,
where it's like, this is just a small piece of my entire life
yeah, yeah,
rather than this is the most important thing. And I have to sacrifice everything else to
yeah,
achieve more in this thing.
yeah. And it's really interesting. Like even going along with the bird's eye view analogy, it's like I feel like becoming more self-directed is like you having a bird's eye view of your life. Whereas like
Yes.
when you're like externally directed, it's a bunch of other people having a bird's eye view of your life, but from where they are in the context of what they want. And that
Mm-hmm.
shift has been like really, really powerful for me. And it's put a lot into perspective. And yeah, it's very, very different than than where I was. It's still still challenging, still uncomfortable, but yeah, it feels right. Like I said, it
Yeah.
feels right.
I love that, dude. And you maybe just answered the next question, which was like looking back, um, over the past several months and everything, what would you say is the biggest lesson or insight from the whole process?
That's a great question. Biggest lesson or insight. I think for me, honestly, for me, and this is I know it's like a cliche thing to say, but it never resonated to me before doing this program,
Mm-hmm.
which was like people say trust your gut or trust your intuition,
Yeah.
and that was never. Like I said, I was almost always skeptical of the feeling that I couldn't put logic to. Oh, I feel this way, but I don't. It doesn't make sense, so I'm not going to trust that it's anything to observe, anything to look deeper into, anything to sit in, be present in. And Mindworks really kind of shifted that for me to the point now where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling this. It might not make sense logically, but it's worth acknowledging. It's worth taking a look at. It's worth sitting in for a second. It's worth being present. It's worth doing Ask the Body. It's worth something. And I think, getting stuck in those patterns, I think the biggest reason why in the past that ambient anxiety kind of boiled over into burnout or boiled over into loss of focus or sleeplessness or all those different things is because I was feeling those things, but discarding them, ignoring them. And it kind of just grew in the background until it ended up becoming overwhelming. And now it's like, oh, I'm feeling something there. Let's acknowledge it now before the next one kind of stacks on top. Um, so yeah, I
Yeah.
would say like kind of listening to my intuition, or at least acknowledging my gut feelings about something, or my first like physiological response to stressors or triggers,
Hmm.
and not just immediately going to push. Oh, we got to focus on something else right now. Let's push that to the side. Get back to it later. Never get back to it later. So
Right.
it's like yeah. And then I guess to a more specific degree, I think just like the value of presence. And I know that
Hmm.
like this might not have been like a one of the intentions of the work, or of the course, but I've just, maybe it's something about sitting in the body more than just in your head. I've started to feel my presence a lot more in other areas, unrelated areas of my life, like being with friends, just feeling in a moment. I guess like I started kind of turning that sort of part of me back on, and now it's like I'm
Hmm.
actually feeling those moments more. Or I don't know how you could feel something more, but yeah, just like presence has become very more noticeable for me, and it's something that I really appreciate, and I guess I didn't realize how much I was suppressing or missing. Yeah, just like feeling a moment in your body and just being I don't know if at peace is
Yeah.
I don't know if at peace is like the way to say it, but just
Hmm.
being present. So those two I think were probably the biggest.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. No, I love it. And there's a couple of things, yeah, that come to mind. I mean, one commonality that I've seen in pretty much everybody, that like all my clients, we all have some aspect of people pleasing. And for men, it's like being the nice guy, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's this habit of like doing so many things for so many other people, and sometimes being so many different things for so many different people. And when we do that, we are not listening to our intuition, right? It's literally the opposite, right? We're doing things for other people rather than for ourselves, and being less self-directed, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be selfish and just live a self-centered life, but it's also unhealthy to just keep your own wants and needs kind of suppressed and pushed down, and just keep doing things for everyone else. And as you do that, you are disconnecting yourself from your own inner voice, from your gut feeling, like you were saying. And whenever there's some uncomfortable emotion then that comes up, right? Like frustration or anger or um, resentment or something, and you're like, oh, I'll deal with it later, right? Well,
Mhm.
we push that down, and what happens is we push those down, we suppress the things we don't want to feel. We also suppress all of our positive emotions also. So when we numb out, because we do this to ourselves, right? And
Yeah.
this took me a while to realize. As we numb out, we numb everything. You can't selectively numb. Oh, I'm
No.
only going to
Yeah.
numb out
The
the
bad
anger in my
stuff.
life. I'm
Yeah.
only going to numb out, the insecurity in my life. No, as you numb out, you numb everything. The
Yeah.
joy, the love, the happiness, all of it. And so as you do the work to bring some of that back online, yeah, we're going to start with some of the uncomfortable stuff because there's a lot of energy there, right? But as we bring that back online, it kind of affects everything, like you were saying. Your presence, the way you experience life, the way you observe and just feel and just experience in general changes and shifts, because we're starting to, right, lift the tide that raises all the boats. That
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like, yeah, it kind of catches on the positive side. It kind of catches you by surprise a little bit. You know, like you just be sitting
Hmm.
with a group of friends and being like, "Whoa, I feel great right now,"
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just like, yeah,
Right, because the positive stuff comes online too.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's
awesome.
definitely like a big shift that I noticed.
Love it, man. So, how would you describe what Mindworks is, like in your own words, to someone who's like stuck in maybe some like rumination, anxiety pattern, or someone who's never really heard of it, or someone who might be kind of, they heard about the program and maybe they're like trying to figure out if it's good for them or not? I know it's hard to put words to, right?
Yeah.
For sure. But if you had to, like, how would you kind of describe what we're doing here?
Yeah. So the two, in the, I guess in a practical sense, I would say it's a program that gives you like a tool set to begin to explore yourself and kind of understand what areas and what patterns that you currently have that are keeping you from getting to where you're trying to go. And all of the exercises kind of get you a little bit closer to that place of self-understanding and like self-observation. So I think like that would kind of be how I would describe it in a practical sense. But in a more kind of just like what comes to mind, like just how I felt about the program.
Mm-hmm.
I would say this is kind of like discovering that you had the solution to some of the problems that you've been dealing with and not knowing what that was. Like,
Okay.
and I know it sounds kind of like, crazy, but for me, it was really like you have the ability to kind of observe all of this stuff. You have all of this energy. You have something inside of you that wants to live a life that's self-directed, self-interested. And that's kind of why you're feeling the anxiety, why you're feeling the lack of congruence, why you're feeling this disconnect, why you feel like dissociated from what you're doing and how you're feeling or how you think about yourself. And Mindworx kind of like bridges that gap, and it's an extremely uncomfortable process. like at least for me, like it you know it's hard because you're so used to being on one side,
Yeah.
and you've like placed these patterns and all of these things in between you and that like self-directed life. And sometimes that's people, external relationships, living up to the expectations of others, all of those different things. And kind of what the exercises do is they kind of give you like, get you one step closer and then take you one step back to kind of observe where you are. And for me, those two parts, I think kind of what had it click for me, because being the solution is great. But observing and feeling and acknowledging and being present in the solution actually becoming a part of your life is the thing that's like the most reaffirming. So yeah, this stuff is really hard to put words to, but that's what I would say. I would say it's like bringing you and the self-directed life where you know yourself, you feel really aligned and congruent with where you're at on the outside, on the inside, and pulling that closer together would be how I would describe it. So yeah, so if you're one of those people that's like, you're feeling that disconnect, you're feeling that lack of congruence, you're feeling very like reactive and not responsive, you're feeling like you're kind of living a life for other people or other people's expectations, I would definitely recommend giving Mindworx a try, because it kind of pulls you out of that a little bit. It's really uncomfortable at first, but once you kind of get rolling, not only do you start to see that that's possible for you, but you start to kind of feel it in your body and repurpose the energy that's already there into propelling you in that direction. And it's a crazy journey. It's a crazy journey. Yeah, like I don't know any other way to put it.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And thank you for sharing all that. And it is a
Of
crazy
course.
journey. And you experienced a lot more in the what, 3 months, a lot faster than what I did. I put this together over years, and it was so cool to see you experience a lot of that transformation in a much shorter period of time than it took me. And yeah, it's not designed to be comfortable. It's not designed to be
Yeah.
easy. But one thing I decided a while ago is we all say, oh, something's hard and this is too hard. It's not usually hard. Like a table, a desk is hard. It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so if we can accept that discomfort is what's required to change, and if we can lean into that a little bit more intentionally with the right toolkit, right, then we can really start to shift things. So 100% agree on everything you said. Yeah. What would you say you are most proud of in your growth over the past few months?
Great question. I would say two things. I don't know if I could get to one. I guess one would be kind of letting go of like old patterns that are comfortable. Like traditionally, that's been a really difficult thing for me, and I think that's one of the reasons that kind of kept me in that space for a really long time was just comfort. So I guess in a way, being brave enough to kind of step into the discomfort, like you were just saying. And then the other part would be having a little trust in something that I'm skeptical of, right?
Okay.
And by that, I mean, like I said, I'm so used to just doing everything in my head, thinking my way out of a box, thinking my way to a solution, and less of feeling my body, acknowledging energy and things of that nature. And I knew that it was there, right? Because when you have anxiety, it's literally just like energy buildup, or at least that's how I would feel it. But you're kind of just like ignoring it, you're kind of just pushing it off. But yeah, just trusting that, like, okay, this is not how I normally would deal with things. I can't really see the other side from where I'm at, where I was in the beginning, but just trusting that, what I was doing currently wasn't working. It was ending up having me feel burnout, resentful, exhausted, lost. So just like kind of trusting that, giving another approach a real concerted try and effort would work. And I'm really proud of myself for kind of going through with it. And like I said, one of the biggest parts of me saying yes to the program was like the trust I had in you and like our shared experience. So I think that was like a big part of it as well.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of you for everything you've accomplished and shifted. I love what you said about how the first thing was letting go of old patterns.
Yeah.
As I was going through my own journey, I knew I had old patterns that I didn't want. And my one question was, how do I let go of these? And there's not a lot of good answers out there. And as I finally figured this all out, I just came to realize, like, I think letting go of our patterns and who we are and stuff like that in general is one of the hardest things that we can learn how to do. One of the most challenging things that we as humans can learn how to do and decide to do, because it's not comfortable for sure, right? And they're ingrained in us, right? It's our conditioning, which we've had programmed in us over the decades since the day we were born, right? So it's, you're not just going to snap your fingers and they're out, but we can do it quickly enough if we have the right tools. And yeah, it takes a little bit of a leap of faith to try something different. But hey, if the tools that were out there currently all worked, then exactly. We'd all be great. So, man, I really appreciate you kind of taking that leap and going for it. And you killed it, man. You nailed it. Yeah. So
no, I appreciate it. And like I said, it was like, seeing how much progress you made and you sharing like your experience with the program and like figuring all this stuff out. It was really encouraging to like take that leap and like try. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Thanks, man. Anything else that you want to say to anyone who might be considering it or just on their kind of self-improvement journey? Anything else that you want to share?
Yeah. I will say, like, the exercises, they work. And the first couple times, like we discussed, like it's not necessarily meant to be comfortable. But I think once you sit in that for a little bit, and then kind of start trusting the process, it really, the shifts, like once they come, they just kind of snowball. And you'll be really surprised at like how much change takes place. I know I was, yeah, during our sessions, I don't know how many times you heard me say, "Whoa, like I didn't expect this," or I wasn't expecting this," or
A
"This
lot.
felt really uncomfortable at first," and then a couple weeks later in another session, I was like, "All right, starting to starting to sit in it, starting to get it, starting to see improvements, start to experience new things." So yes, I would just encourage folks, if you're on that sort of self development journey, and the tools that you've currently tried hadn't been working for you, I think giving Mindworx a shot would be excellent and great. Like I said, yeah, it's a crazy experience. There's no other way to put it. Like
Yeah.
it's this whirlwind experience of like really taking the time to like work on yourself and push through some of the barriers that have been built up over time. And it was challenging, but incredibly worth it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that, man. Any place that anyone who's listening, if they want to connect with you, that you kind of have open for people to reach out or just
Yeah,
to follow you and your journey?
yeah, sure, yeah, sure. I'm on Instagram. The handle is Kyle Invests. So you guys can find me there. Yeah, that's probably the best place to
Okay.
connect with me on there. So
Cool. Thanks, man. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you, not just on the show doing this episode, but
yeah,
just working with you over the past few months, man. It was so cool to see how much you transformed and how much you shifted in such a small amount of time.
yeah,
And
yeah,
because a
no,
few months is nothing in the grand scheme of things, right?
yeah,
Especially when it takes decades to do the programming, right? If we can undo it in a fraction of that, it's huge. And you did such a great job, and you really committed to it. And a lot of people, we say we're going to do something, we don't do it,
yeah,
but you actually did, and you got, sounds like some pretty amazing shifts out of it. So
yeah, yeah,
super
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, definitely surprised with the amount of progress, like you said. And it's like I said, the program's given me so many different tools that I'm still using. Like, it's not still kind of working through some of them and and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been great, man. I really appreciate you putting together this program and kind of like walking through this journey with me. It's been an incredible experience. Like I said, challenging but very worthwhile.
Yeah. Cool, man. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot for coming on the show today. And yeah, we'll cut it here.
Take
Talk to
care.
you later.